Hey guys, it's Rob here and welcome back to the channel. So we do have some pretty interesting news, and I would call it a Nintendo Switch 2 leak as well, since this is information that hasn't been yet readily accessible because the Nintendo Switch isn't even out yet, or the Nintendo Switch 2 I mean. The Nintendo Switch 2 is officially less than 1 month away, which is kind of crazy when you really think about it, because remember those rumors and leaks and all that great stuff that was coming out when the original Nintendo Switch launched? That's how long we've been actually talking about this thing, and we're finally going to be able to get our hands on it in less than a month. It's really exciting to me. Now, what's even more crazy is some people already have their hands on it. While Nintendo has been storing stock in warehouses around the world for people waiting for launch day, it seems someone has managed to grab a unit early. And of course, instead of keeping quiet, they tore it apart and put everything online, and now we have that information. So a YouTube channel by the name of Geeker Juan somehow got the Nintendo Switch 2, and they've done a full breakdown of the hardware. So let's talk about what they found inside the Nintendo Switch 2 and what it could mean for Nintendo's next-gen console. First off, the processor, or SoC, is the NVIDIA T239. It's got 8 Cortex A78 CPU cores and 4 megabytes of L3 cache. Now, the chip that they have in the Nintendo Switch 2 is Samsung's 8nm processor, which isn't really bleeding technology, but it's still a decent balance between performance and power efficiency. And then, of course, we have the GPU, which is based on NVIDIA's Ampere architecture, the same tech used in the RTX 30 series cards. It packs 1,536 CUDA cores, which gives a rough idea on the graphical muscle here. Of course, it's no PS5 or Xbox Series X, but it's still a huge leap forward for a handheld, especially compared to the Nintendo Switch 1. The Nintendo Switch 2 will also include 12 gigabytes of RAM. It's going to be LPDDR5X RAM, by the way, which is something we did hear a while back that was also leaked. I think it was part of the shipping information that came out, which is a pretty big upgrade, especially compared to the Nintendo Switch 1. When you compare to the original Nintendo Switch, in fact, it only has 4 gigabytes of RAM. So the fact that we have 12 is really fantastic. Now, when it comes to the RAM, the really fantastic thing about this is that the OS is going to be a lot more smoother. This is going to help with demanding games or multitasking when you're using the Nintendo Switch OS, especially when it comes to the Nintendo eShop. Nintendo already said they're going for a more smoother experience with that. So this RAM is going to help with that, I would assume so anyways. Now, for storage, it's going to be coming to, of course, 258 gigabytes of UFS 3.1. That's very fast storage, way better than the eMMC found in the original Nintendo Switch. And this is why we need those specific cards for the Nintendo Switch 2, not just the regular cards that we were using for our original Nintendo Switch. Now, I do have to say, it is kind of disappointing that we do have 258 gigabytes of memory on the Nintendo Switch 2. While we could still play games, which is fantastic, I do wish it was at least like 500, because a lot of these third-party games are going to be pretty hefty when it comes to sizes, especially compared to the original Nintendo Switch, where we were able to get much cheaper cards and still get a lot more out of that. Now we need to have specific cards that cost more. So I do wish there was a little bit more memory on the Nintendo Switch 2, but what can you do? That's what Nintendo had, or did, I mean. Now, as for connectivity, when it comes to Wi-Fi, the system is using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth components from MediaTek, and it's got a Realtek chip I don't know why I said it like that, handling audio. Nothing too flashy here, of course, but it's functional and it's proven tech in the past. Now, let's talk about the power. So the SoC can draw up to 34.4 watts. If I remember correctly, there was some stuff about the actual power for the Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes to the things that it was doing with the plug, if I remember correctly. There was a leak we covered before that did talk about the amount of power that it was going to draw, and if I remember correctly, it was supposed to be really good at managing power. And when it comes to that, especially when it comes to a handheld console, another thing that you're going to have to handle is also the heat. And on that side of things too, the battery life. So those things really need to be solid so you can have a solid handheld. And when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, apparently this means that in-game power usage might actually be lower, especially when you're going in handheld, which is really great because you don't want your Nintendo Switch 2 to heat up, right? Now, here's the thing. Now people are starting to compare this to the PS4, the Steam Deck, or even the PS5, and it's important to keep in mind that hardware numbers aren't everything. It's not the bottom line. We have seen companies pull a lot of things out of the original Nintendo Switch, and the fact that this is just so much more powerful than the original Nintendo Switch, just imagine what they could do with the new power. Nintendo has always leaned heavily on for the most part anyways. There are some games that aren't really too optimized on the original Nintendo Switch, obviously, but when it comes to the first party games, for the most part, the optimization for those games are pretty fantastic, especially for a handheld. And with Nvidia in the picture, features like DLSS could really stretch the power that the Nintendo Switch 2 can have, and that's why I'm really excited to see what they do with the extra power and the DLSS on top of that. So while the raw numbers might not actually blow your mind, the real world performance could end up being surprisingly good. It might not beat the PS4 Pro in every metric, but in the right circumstances, it could match or even exceed it, in my personal opinion. Which, I mean, that's what we're seeing with Cyberpunk 2077, right? The DLC that couldn't run on the base PS4. I'm not 100% sure on the PlayStation 4 Pro because I actually never ended up buying that. I jumped from the original PS4 to the PS5. If anyone has more information on that, let me know in the comment section below. But the fact that it can handle the DLC for Cyberpunk 2077 is a really good sign. And if I remember correctly, CD Projekt said that they were using DLSS in it, and it looks pretty fantastic compared to the other consoles. So what's the takeaway with all of this? Don't get too caught up in specs, but it is very exciting nonetheless because it just kind of proves what we pretty much already knew. I mean, there was some stuff that we know now for fact. If you guys remember, the Nintendo Switch 2 motherboard leaked out early and we already know some stuff about that, but now someone actually has access to it that's not like some random blurry picture from a factory. Now we do have some other Nintendo Switch 2 stuff to talk about when it comes to actual games and dates when we can expect them to come, specifically Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, something I'm actually really excited for. It looks really cool and really good, so I'm pretty excited for that. I'm hoping they actually do some kind of upgrade for the first Hyrule Warriors eventually, because there are some frame rate issues with that game. But anyways, if you're not interested in that, click the top right corner on why I think the HD version of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess still belongs on the Nintendo Switch 2, despite, you know, some people saying that, oh, we shouldn't have that on the Switch 2, or I don't want that. With that being said, let's move on to the next topic. So Nintendo confirmed that Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment is launching in 2025. During the Switch 2 Direct, they only said winter, according to Stealth40k over on Twitter. As you can see, there is this chart right here. We have Cyberpunk 2077 on June 5th. We also have Survival Kids, which actually does look kind of fun. I am slightly interested. Last time I saw some gameplay, so I may try to rent that on Gamefly if it's not like a digital only game. There's also Split Fiction, which is going to be available on June 5th. I actually just got that in the mail from Gamefly, so I'm gonna try it out eventually. There's also Street Fighter, there's also, you know, Deltarune, Yakuza, Bravely Default, all that great stuff that's on your screen right now. They have all the dates attached to them, and the one that got a real good update was Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is gonna be winter 2025, which probably in time for Christmas, I would assume. And of course, Hades 2 is still to be determined, which kind of sucks. I'm really excited for that. Hades was really good on the original Nintendo Switch. Let me know what you guys think about that game down in the comment section below. Are you guys even interested in it? I always like games where it just allows you to go absolutely crazy on a whole bunch of NPCs. I've always found that really fun, so I'm probably gonna check it out. But yeah, let me know if you're gonna check that out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.